This screencast is to support this lesson, which is Lesson 15 from Language to Go Pre-Intermediate by G. Cunningham and S. Mohammed, published by Longman. And here's the student's book page, and you're going to need the teacher's book notes as well. So you've got the teacher's book notes here. There's some really good ideas here. There's useful information on the grammar. This way in is very nice. We'll come back to that in a minute. There's really useful way of dealing with the listening and getting into it. So do make sure you have a good look at the teacher's book notes. There's some useful ideas in there that I might not talk about in the screencast that you might like the idea of. You're also going to need the audio file to go along with this. And remember, you can find the scripts for the audio on Teams, and you'll find additional control practice activities there as well. So let's have a look around the material. The main grammar focus is for obligation, have to and had to, and their past equivalents. There's also some skills work with a listing, and the lead-in and the vocabulary is based around America and some American vocabulary as well. Quite a nice topic. And for the grammar, as usual, there's a little bit of guided discovery, and then some control practice and some freer practice. I would suggest using the teacher's book notes for the lead-in. I think this seems like a nice idea. So ask the class which country you'd find hamburgers, baseball, the Empire State Building in, or you could put a few pictures on a slide and say to me, where is this? What can you see? Let them talk together, and then you can say, okay, you've got 1 minute or 2 minutes to write down as many things as possible that you connect with the USA. And you could write their suggestions on the whiteboard, or you could share a document, or you could simply do this orally. Okay, you could ask them if they've been to America, just to activate the idea of the states and the different vocabulary that they might use there. So you've got a nice little vocab activity here, and the little dialogue to go with it. I think this is quite nice material. So they might have already mentioned in the lead-in that some words for clothes were different. Maybe they don't know, I'm not sure. But you could just show them this activity with the vocabulary and do an example together and let them try. So for example, you've got sneakers matches to trainers matches to E. So 1, 9, E. You could do 2 together, whatever it is. Oh, testing me here. 2, 7, A. Okay, there we go. I can do it. And then let the students do the rest by themselves, and then peer check, talk together, and then some feedback. Bit of drilling would be a good idea, preferably the British English stuff, but any would be useful, I think. Yeah, vest with the V sound can be tricky for some of our students, and jumper, j. Trousers, I find the ow sound can be really difficult for a lot of people, and waistcoat, the O sound for my Spanish learners is difficult as well. So a bit of drilling work to be done there. And yep, you could use this activity here. There might also be something in the control practice exercises on Teams. Remember, if you look for lesson 15 there, you'll find some alternatives. And I think getting them to describe the people in the photo which is on the page, or some other photos that you have, would be nice. And then you can bring in there, he's wearing, she's wearing, they're wearing, just so they can put those into sentences rather than just say the nouns themselves. This might also bring out some other vocabulary like belt, skirt, necklace, tie, things like that. Okay, if you can get suit into that activity, that would be a good idea, because that needs to be used for the listening. Okay, and here's the task for the listening. So it's a dialogue between or an interview of somebody called Tom Banks, and he works in New York, and he's talking about different clothing practices in his workplace. Now, as you know, in a receptive skills lesson, what you need is to raise interest or background knowledge in the topic, and then you need to possibly pre-teach some vocabulary, and then a simple, easy first listening task, and then a more complex second listening task. Now, I think all you've got here is the second, more complex listening task. So you need to think about how you can do the other stages of the lesson. The teacher's book has got some ideas on how you might raise interest at the beginning. Or you might use a picture to show a picture of Tom, a picture of New York, maybe elicit ideas about whether he has to wear a suit or not, where he works, things like that. But we don't have an easy initial task. So I think you need to have a look at the tape script. Remember, it's on Teams, the audio script. And think of an easy initial task. So maybe a couple of simple questions to answer. Or perhaps you could devise some kind of prediction task based on the text as well. So I'll leave that to you to think about. This task works well as the more complex, more challenging task to be done as the second listening task, okay? And the teacher's book gives you an idea about how to deal with dress down, okay? So have a look at that. I think what you want to get them doing is to read through these sentences before they listen. And remember, they've already listened to it once by this point, so you can say, well, what do you think dress down is? And they might have an idea of that, but maybe don't give away the answer. Let them listen for it. And then at the end, peer check to see how well they've done. Decide yourself if you need to play it again by listening to the peer check and monitoring where they're at. And then you can do some class feedback. After the listening, you might want to have an extension task. There's nothing provided here because it goes straight into the grammar, but you might want a few discussion tasks. So do you like the idea of dress down? Do you think that wearing suits is a good thing in all companies? Do you prefer casual or smart clothes? Something linked to the topic that they could just discuss at the end before they dive into the grammar. All right, so here's our grammar focus, and remember the teacher's book has got some good notes on this, so do have a look at that. All right, so we've got an element of guided discovery here for the meaning. Great, let's exploit that. What I don't like is the way we've got positive, negative and question form and short answers kind of jammed in together. It's too busy on the page. What I would suggest is just to tease out the positive and negative sentences from each of the ones from the present and the past, and just put the questions and short answers to one side. So on the slide they're looking at 4 sentences and then they have to match them to the meanings. Okay, then you can elicit the form from there, and then you could maybe try and elicit what's the question and what are the answers, and then show them those. Okay, if you put all 3 up at the same time, positive, negative and question, then get them to do this, there's just too much in front of them, and it's very hard to concept check questions. It's much easier to concept check positive or negative sentences. So we've dealt with meaning there, you've elicited form, and then pronunciation. Again, teacher's book notes got some good points on pronunciation, so I'll leave it to you to have a look at that and think about what you need to do. But remember to drill in short sentences rather than just the structure itself. Okay, so these are perfectly fine. You can use these sentences here. But yeah, make sure you drill in a full sentence, not just have to, had to, didn't have to. All right, so we need to give them some control practice to see if they can manipulate the form. Okay, there's nothing wrong with this exercise, looks completely fine. There's quite a lot of writing for them to do, but that's what they need to do in order to sort of fully get their head around the form. So I do 1 or 2 examples together as a class, eliciting the correct sentences. Make sure you've got the form clear, maybe at the top of your slide, could go here, or somewhere on the screen anyway, or on the board if you're in a face-to-face classroom, so that they can look at the form while they're doing the control practice exercise. At the end, get them to peer check, talk together about their answers so that you can listen in, monitor, and that monitoring can inform your feedback. You'll be able to see which ones they've struggled with and which ones they've found easy and target your feedback accordingly. You might hear that the pronunciation is still not great, so you might want to drill a couple of these items as well. So use the peer check to listen and see how they have done on this task. Also, of course, there are other control practice tasks in the additional materials, which is on Teams. So have a look there, see if there's anything that appeals to you more. So we want to get them talking now. So there's a nice task here that they talk about what's necessary and not necessary in a place where they work or worked, or where they study or studied. Of course, they could talk about the present or the past. And there are some prompts here for things that they can talk about. Okay. Obviously, they're going to need a few things to scaffold this task. They're going to need an example, a demonstration, a model from the teacher, so you could talk about a place where you work or a place where you study. Obviously, pretty much just your bedroom and on your computer at the moment, so it might take a bit of imagination. And then give them the prompts, which we have up here, and then ask them to make notes about a place where they work or a place where they study, and give them time to prepare. And then get them talking, maybe one at a time, and getting other people to listen and see whether their places are the same or different. One thing the same, one thing different, something like that, so the listeners have got something to do. I do like this task for the writing, and I wonder if that could be the speaking task instead, that you talk about somewhere in your country and tell them about the work practices there. So it could be, you could say, well, I'm thinking about going to work in your country. Okay, what would you tell me about, and then you could use these prompts, the clothes, what you call your clients, what times of day you work, where you work or study. So I guess what I'm saying is you could either use this task here or use this task here, but use either of them as speaking tasks, and you can pretty much use the same prompts for each of them. So make sure you scaffold it with a clear model, with giving them prompts, by giving them preparation time, and then letting them speak after that and providing some feedback on ideas and then feedback on correction at the end. And that should be a very nice lesson on have to, don't have to. It's a tricky one because all other verbs work in a very different way. Like, don't like, walk, don't walk, know, don't know. But have to and don't have to, they're not direct opposites. So they can be tricky for students. So make sure you're really clear about the meaning.